What's good, guys? It's Jason from Nyoka Ball Pythons again. So it's the end of September and we're getting very close to the breeding season. So I thought it'd be a good idea to do a series on how I do things without an ultrasound. So all of you basement breeders or all of you small breeders who don't have a high-tech ultrasound, you want to stay tuned to our channel and watch this series. So let's do this.
Here we go.
Excited about this series. I think I'm gonna call it the No Ultrasound series because what this series will be is I'm gonna walk you through all the different steps that I go through in terms of breeding my ball python. Now, I'm not sure how many videos this series is actually gonna be. To be honest, I'm not even sure what I'm gonna be doing in future videos. It really is going to be as I go along, everything that I think is notable, I'm going to note in videos, and I'm going to try to make this series as comprehensive and as complete as possible. As we're going through the series, as usual, I'm always willing to take suggestions and advice from my subscribers. So please feel free to holler at me if you have any questions, if you feel I left something out. If you want me to cover something more in depth, please feel free and holler at me, because this channel isn't just about me, but it's about sharing the hobby and sharing knowledge and sharing information. So let's get started. So as I said, this will be the first video in the series of my no ultrasound ball python breeding. So in this video, what I'll be covering is all the things that I do in preparation for the season, or in preparation, or all the things that I do before I put that first male into the female's tub, because it's not just as simple as just getting the male and having the female and just throwing it into the tub. There's a little more involved, and you got to be paying a lot of attention to your animals. So let's just go through what I do before I start breeding my ball pythons. Okay, guys, before I do any pairings, one of the first things I do is I get my pen, get my trusty old book, and I write down my pairings. One of the first things you should be doing before you start anything with your ball python breeding is write down your pairings and have a breeding plan. And when you're creating this breeding plan, you want to be thinking of both your short-term projects and your long-term projects. When you're working on your plan, you should be focused on pairings that make sense to you. What I mean by that is, well, a couple things. First is pairings that make sense in the sense of you don't want to be pairing a lemon blast to a pinstripe, because that outcome isn't going to be anything new or anything exciting, because you're only going to be recreating what you already have. You also want to be thinking in terms of your collection. Don't worry, a lot of breeders try to recreate what's hot or recreate what they think is going to sell, but you should be more focused on your projects and things where you want to see your animals, the direction you want to see your collection go in, and make animals that are going to complement, or put together pairings so that you're going to get animals that are going to complement what you're doing with your breeding. Don't worry about what's hot. Don't worry about what's selling at the time. Stay focused on your projects and carry them through. And that's what I mean about short-term projects and long-term projects, because those short-term projects will give you that satisfaction at the time, but it's really those long-term projects that are going to be worthwhile and going to give you that ultimate long-term satisfaction. So you want to make sure you're planning for that. Very, very important in your breeding, guys. Alright, so the second factor that I want to talk about that you guys should be considering is heat. Now, some breeders will cycle their heats during the breeding season to stimulate follicular growth. I personally don't cycle my heats at all. I keep my heats constant right through the season. What I do find is that when the female needs to cool, the female will migrate in within the tub, and I do within our house. We tend to drop our house temperatures at night, so the snake room, the temps in the room will drop, but I don't cycle at all the temperatures on the rack. I'm not sure why it's still difficult for that to come out. I don't cycle at all the temps on the rack. What I actually do is drop the temperature in the room.
So you didn't explain why you cycle the heats. I think you forgot that part.
There's a few reasons. The first one is if you come in closer and come in and get a shot on the tub, normally the heat is this area. Because I don't have an ultrasound, I can't see the size of the follicles. So if I have constant heat for the snake to cool, which is a sign of follicular development, the snake's going to have to move forward. And I'm able to, when I'm checking on my animals, I'm able to see that snake up front as opposed to in the back. And I have some idea of what's happening with her follicular development. If I was cycling heats and she wanted to cool in the evening, she could be at the back, and I wouldn't know where she's at in terms of her follicular development. Another reason why I like to keep my heats constant is I'm able to feed that female heavier prey right up until she starts refusing food. If I was cycling my heats, now that she's only getting 12 hours of heat, I'm more inclined to feed smaller prey items, which means, and I found, because I used to cycle my heats, I found I have better results when I'm able to feed those females heavy right up until they refuse feed, which is usually 3 weeks, a month before ovulation. And I found I've had better results. So you don't have to beat me over the head with a stick if I'm having better results doing one thing with a minor change, like keep my heats on consistent, then I'm going to keep my heats on. Alright, now one of the most important things that you need to consider when you're preparing for your ball python breeding season is if your females have the right size or enough fat storage to reproduce or to produce eggs, because it does produce a lot of energy and a lot of fat from the females. And I think I want to talk about this, the 1500 gram mark. Guys, the 1500 gram mark is for first year breeders, and it is an estimate. I've had first year breeders that were really long and slim that weighed 1500 grams, and I didn't breed them because they didn't have enough body fat that made me comfortable to breed them. I've also had snakes that weren't as long but were much shorter, much stockier, much thicker, and those females I did put in my breeding program and was successful with them. So it's, number one, it's for first year breeders, that 1500 gram mark, and I'll show you some examples of proven breeders that are probably around 1500 grams and don't have the body weight at this point to be put into the breeding program. It's not for proven breeders, guys. It really is for those first time breeders, and it is an estimate. You still gotta observe your animal. You still gotta make sure that your animal is feeding regularly and is healthy. You still gotta make sure that your animal has the right body size. So please just don't go off the 1500 gram mark without making proper observations of your animals. Okay, so right here we have a proven breeder butter pastel. She's going into shed, so she's not looking as brilliant and lovely as she would normally look, but as you can see, she has tremendous size. She's currently weighing just over 2,600 grams. Been eating really, she did give me a clutch last season. Been eating really well. And you can see she's put on, you can see how thick she is. She's put on significant fat. And she has enough fat storage, and she's looking thick enough that this is definitely a female that I'm not going to hesitate to breed this upcoming season. So guys, when you are selecting your females, you want to look at the lower third of the body and make sure that your female has sufficient fat storage, because remember, it does take a lot of energy from them to produce those eggs. So you don't want your females looking too skinny. You want them to have significant fat storage on their bodies, and this is the ideal of what I aim for. Alright guys, now here's an example of a snake that's 1,500 grams, actually 1,600 grams. She produced for me maybe 2 months ago. She laid a clutch, and you can see compared to the snake that I showed you before, although she doesn't want to stay in the shot, nowhere near the fat storage. She's nowhere near the size of the other snake, and even though she's 1,500 grams, this is, at least at this point in the season, she is definitely not a snake that I would consider pairing with another male. Now, she's eating really well, and as the season progresses, if she continues to put on that fat storage, I may consider breeding her. But at this point, nowhere near the size or fat storage required, or at least for my liking, that makes me comfortable enough to include her in my breeding program. So here are the two animals together, and you really can see the difference in the size and the girth of the two animals. So remember guys, it's not that 1,500 gram mark. It's really about paying attention to your animals and knowing what you're looking for, and then executing your plan. Alright guys, so that's going to conclude the first in our series of ball python breeding with no ultrasound. Hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you found the video at least somewhat informative. Remember, please feel free to send me messages giving me ideas or even criticisms if I left something out or I didn't explain anything properly. I think that wraps it up. So I want to say thank you for watching our video. Please like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell, all that good stuff. Until the next time.
Take care.
Peace.